They turned something off. Not the lights, not the machines, but the voice, the one that usually tells us what's happening out there in space. By the third week, when 3I/Atlas passed near Mars, NASA suddenly went silent. Websites froze. Live feeds stopped updating. The signal gone. And in that strange silence, something drifted through the Martian night. A visitor from beyond our sun. It was only the third interstellar object we've ever discovered, and the first one to cross paths with another planet. The world wasn't paying attention, but a few people noticed, because when the sky goes quiet, it's never just silence. This was supposed to be a breakthrough moment. 3I/Atlas's closest approach, the perfect time to capture new images and data. But just as the object came into view, everything went dark. Then came the announcement. Government shutdown. Officials said the object had been drifting for ages, long before Mars had rivers or Earth had oceans. 3I/Atlas didn't behave like a normal comet. It wasn't crashing in or flying wildly. Instead, it moved in a smooth, flat path, almost perfectly aligned with the plane of our planets. That's unusual. Most interstellar visitors, like Oumuamua or Borisov, zipped in at odd angles, fast and unpredictable. But 3I/Atlas followed our orbit, as if it knew where to go, and that's what made it feel different. When scientists first spotted it in July 2025, nobody knew what it was. It was moving at more than 60 kilometers per second, with a glowing green cloud, called a coma, surrounding it. But it didn't have a tail like most comets do. Instead, it had something strange, an anti-tail pointing toward the sun. That only happens from very unusual angles, or when an object isn't what we think it is. Early estimates showed it was huge, over 5 kilometers wide, bigger than both Oumuamua and Borisov, big enough to hold its shape through deep space, big enough to make scientists wonder what it really was. But the more they looked, the more confusing it became. Why was it glowing so brightly when it was still so far from the sun? Why was its color so green? Not blue or yellow, but deep emerald. Was it just strange chemistry or something more complex? Then something incredible happened. On September 25th, a massive solar storm blasted plasma straight at it. But 3I/Atlas didn't even flinch. No disruption, no change in speed, nothing. It just kept moving, as if even the sun couldn't touch it. By October, the object was nearing Mars, gliding silently into orbit range. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance for our spacecraft to capture it up close. Orbiters, satellites, rovers, all ready, all in position. And just before that moment, Earth went dark. The data feeds stopped. NASA's channels went quiet. But 3I/Atlas didn't stop. It kept moving past Mars, maybe even captured by cameras that couldn't send their images back to us. The Perseverance rover might have seen it. A faint streak in the Martian night sky that didn't belong. But we didn't see it happen. Not live. Not even after. Because right when we needed the data most, everything shut down. And maybe that's the strangest part. Not the object itself. Not its path or its color. But the silence. The total system-wide silence. As if something or someone didn't want us to see it coming. There were orbiters circling Mars, scanning the skies in multiple wavelengths, ready to record light from deep space. And not just orbiters, rovers too. Machines on the surface with cameras pointed upward, watching stars that we can't even see from Earth. Everything was ready. And then, silence. NASA's website displayed a single message. Due to a lapse in funding, this site is not being updated. Data feeds stopped. Press releases were canceled. Social media accounts went dark. Entire communication chains were put on standby. For the public, it was as if the sky had stopped talking. The stars were still there, but no one could tell us what they were doing. Now, not every part of NASA shuts down during a government freeze. Some missions keep running, especially the ones that protect lives or handle critical operations. But the parts that share information with the public, the updates, the transparency, the open data, those always go dark first. So even if the machines in space were still working, their voices were cut off. And that's what people felt, not just absence, but intentional silence, a quiet that arrived at the exact moment we needed answers. People could feel it, not just silence, but intentional silence. It was like someone muted the sound right at the exact moment we needed to hear it most. Because 3I/Atlas didn't wait. It never would. As it passed close to Mars, it came near enough to trigger instruments, close enough to raise serious questions. Maybe it left a faint mark in the data. Maybe it reflected sunlight just long enough to be caught by the Perseverance rover or the Trace Gas Orbiter. Those images might already exist, somewhere stored on a server, in a file, waiting for someone to hit send. But no one did. Not that week, not when it mattered most. And that timing, it feels too perfect. An object from another star system passes by Mars, an opportunity that might not come again for centuries. And right then, the only space agency capable of showing us what happened goes completely silent. The European Space Agency kept watching. So did China. So did the UAE. But their updates don't reach the public like NASA's do. Their data doesn't flood social media or make global headlines. And so, the silence deepened. It spread wider, like the universe whispered something, and we missed it completely. Now, there's no solid proof of a cover-up. The government shutdown was planned. The flyby followed basic orbital mechanics. But still, that coincidence sticks with you, and it leaves one haunting question. If something truly strange passed near Mars, would we even know? Or would we only see what we're allowed to see? Because sometimes silence isn't a glitch. Sometimes it's a decision. Sometimes the signal isn't lost, it's cut. NASA didn't show us any new images, but that doesn't mean there weren't any. In space, cameras never sleep. ESA's Mars Express, the Trace Gas Orbiter, and NASA's MAVEN all circle Mars nonstop, scanning its surface, recording its skies, always watching. And in early October, every one of those machines was active, perfectly positioned to see the visitor. By then, 3I/Atlas wasn't just a faint point in the dark. It was close, only about 29 million kilometers from Mars. That's practically a cosmic handshake. It was bright, big, and fast. If any machine could have seen it, these could. But there's one more watcher, not in orbit, but on the ground. Perseverance, a robot sitting on the Martian surface, equipped with high-resolution eyes called Mastcam-Z. It usually studies rocks, dust, and the Martian atmosphere, but sometimes it looks up, especially at night. On October 2nd, just hours before the closest approach, Perseverance took a few long exposure photos of the sky. It wasn't part of its main mission. It wasn't even aimed at Earth. It was just looking. And in one of those images, something moved. A streak. Faint, fast, different. It wasn't a star. Stars leave smooth, curved trails that match Mars' rotation. This one was straight, sharp, at an angle that didn't match any known satellite path. Too fast to be a moon, too slow to be cosmic rays, too precise to be noise. It looked like a crossing, something that passed by, lit the camera's sensor for just a few seconds, and disappeared. Was it 3I/Atlas? The timing fits, the direction lines up, the speed matches its trajectory. But there was no confirmation, not officially, no press release, no headline. Just a quiet whisper buried in a dataset, shared among a few researchers, briefly posted, then disappeared from most feeds. Sure, it could have been something else, a glitch, a piece of debris, or a meteor skimming through the Martian atmosphere. Even that would have been worth noting. But nothing. Other orbiters might have seen even more. The Mars Express was in the right position. The trace gas orbiter specializes in detecting fine particles and gases, perfect for spotting an object trailing plasma and ice. They were all active. They were all there. But if they saw anything, no one said a word. There's talk, though. Draft papers, observations under embargo, mission teams waiting for clearance, funding, or the end of the shutdown to speak again. But the silence remains. Meanwhile, the European Space Agency released a single, vague update. Observations of 3 I/Atlas are ongoing and promising. No images attached. No spectral data. Just a hint, enough to say, we're watching, but not enough to show what they saw. Other missions, like China's Tianwen-1 and the UAE's Hope orbiter, were also in position, but their communications are limited. Their images don't stream live. Analysis takes weeks, sometimes months. If they saw something, the world might never know, and so we're left with fragments. A streak across the Martian night, a paused data feed, a single sentence from ESA, and a million questions. Some say we're expecting too much, that space is hard, that data takes time, that this silence is just bureaucracy, not a cover-up. But others remember Oumuamua, how it came and went with no answers, how its light curve didn't make sense, how it changed direction without a tail. And now, 3 I/Atlas, bigger, closer, stranger, passes by a planet full of eyes, and somehow slips through them all. No confirmation, no denial, just absence. And maybe that's the real story. Not what we saw, but what we didn't. Not the images on the screen, but the frames we were never shown. In a universe full of signals, silence is never neutral. It's a message, a decision, a choice. And maybe this time, that choice wasn't ours. Maybe the images exist, hidden, too sensitive, too strange, too revealing. Or maybe they were never saved at all. And if that's true, if we had the chance to see a traveler from beyond the stars, passing right beside another world, and we let it slip through the dark without record, what else have we missed? What else has drifted past, unseen, unspoken, unbelieved? It passed through the dark, across Mars's orbit, in the narrow window between visibility and oblivion. It passed, and we didn't see it. Not clearly, not completely, maybe not at all. A visitor from another star system, a body that defies definition. Not quite a comet, not quite an asteroid, not quite explainable. One that came with speed, structure, and silence. And just as it reached its closest point, we stopped looking. Or were told to stop. Or someone stopped telling us. There's no final proof, no leaked image, no smoking file to confirm what 3 I/Atlas was or wasn't. But there's something else, something heavier than data, a feeling that when it mattered most, the signal was cut. That somewhere in a control room, a choice was made to wait, to delay, to stay silent. And in that void, we're left with a question. Was that silence a coincidence or a warning? If there's more to see, we haven't seen it. If there's more to know, we haven't been told. And maybe we never will. But we're still watching, still listening, still waiting for the next object to drift in from the dark. For the next signal they don't want us to hear. And when it comes, we'll be here. So stay with us. Subscribe. Because out there, in the space between stars, something is always moving. And silence is never just silence.